All right, so are you ready? Get ready to dive deep. Today, we're going after the holy grail of freshwater fishing,
Ooh, I like it,
the
man.
legendary 3-pound crappie.
Legendary is right.
We're going to break down an episode of Angling Pros,
Yeah.
where they spill all the secrets on landing one of these monster slabs.
They're beasts.
You'll be an expert by the end of this deep dive on everything from picking the right lure to understanding what makes these fish tick.
It's interesting because, so much of what Angling Pros talks about really emphasizes that catching a true trophy crappie is almost like a mental game.
Really?
Yeah, you're not just casting a line, you're trying to outsmart a creature that's been honing its survival instincts for years.
Yeah, you're so right. They actually say that that big crappie are masters of finesse, and we need to be too. I'm already intrigued.
Right.
What I'm picking up here is that it's less about brute force and more about strategy and understanding of their behavior.
Exactly. And that's where those aha moments come in for anglers. You know, once you realize it's about thinking like a crappie, the whole approach changes.
So let's break down their strategy. What kind of lures are we talking about here?
Angling pros are big proponents of soft plastic jigs.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Things like curly tail grubs, paddle tails, or tube jigs.
Yeah.
They say these work best because they really mimic the natural prey of a crappie.
Okay, that makes sense. But there are a ton of soft plastic jig options out there. What makes these stand out to a big crappie?
Well, it's a combination of things.
Yeah.
Think about it from the fish's perspective. You've got vibrant colors,
Okay.
like chartreuse pink, or a classic silver and blue combo that create a visual trigger in the water, especially in low-light conditions.
Interesting.
And then you add the lifelike movement of those jig tails,
Uh-huh.
and suddenly it's like ringing the dinner bell for a hungry crappie.
That's awesome. Now that we've got them interested, let's talk about presenting these lures effectively. Angling pros recommend using a lighter jig head, something like a 1/16 or 18 ounce.
Yeah.
For someone like me who's used to bass fishing, that seems incredibly light.
It might feel counterintuitive, but trust me, there's a good reason for it.
Okay.
Those lighter jig heads allowed the lure to sink slowly and naturally, mimicking the movement of real prey. Big crappie heads are cautious, and anything that looks unnatural will send them swimming for cover.
I'm starting to see the whole finesse approach come into play here. Now, what about the line? I know Angling Pros had some specific recommendations there.
They're big fans of fluorocarbon line,
Okay.
specifically in the 4 to 6 pound test range. It's practically invisible underwater, which is crucial when you're dealing with a fish as wary as a trophy crappie.
Right.
Plus, it's incredibly sensitive, so
Yeah.
you can feel even the slightest nibble.
Ah, so no more missed opportunities.
Exactly.
Speaking of feeling those nibbles, what kind of rod and reel setup should we be using?
Angling pros suggest a 6 to 7 foot light action rod paired with a smooth reel. The light action allows you to present the jig with that all-important finesse, while the smooth reel ensures you can control your retrieve without spooking the fish. Remember, we're not trying to overpower these guys.
Right.
We're trying to outsmart them.
Now that we've got our stealthy setup dialed in, let's talk about where to find these monster crappie. Angling pros say we need to start thinking like a crappie. Right?
Absolutely.
We're not just hanging out anywhere.
Absolutely. They emphasize the importance of targeting structure.
Okay.
Things like submerged brush piles, docks, or areas with standing timber.
Yeah.
These spots provide both cover from predators and ambush points,
Right.
where crappie can lie in wait for an easy meal.
So it's not just about casting randomly, it's about strategically targeting these high percentage areas. I love it. Angling pros even suggest using a fish finder to locate these hotspots efficiently. Talk about combining angler wisdom with technology.
That's right.
Yeah.
A fish finder can be a game changer when it comes to locating those underwater hideouts.
Yeah.
You can actually see the structure on your screen and pinpoint the crappie's location.
I'm already picturing myself scanning the lake bed, searching for those telltale signs of crappie layers. Now, what about timing? Is there a magic hour for targeting these trophy fish?
Angling pros actually recommend focusing on those low-light periods,
Okay.
early mornings and late evenings.
Makes sense.
Crappie are most active when the sun is low,
Right.
making those prime times to target those bigger fish.
It makes sense that they'd be more active when they can use the shadows to their advantage.
Yeah.
It's like they're reading the angler playbook and doing the opposite. But angling pros also mention seasonal patterns, right?
Absolutely. They use spring as a prime example.
Yeah,
During the spring spawning season, crappie move into shallower water,
right.
making them easier to find and potentially more aggressive in their feeding.
Yeah.
So it's not just about time of day. It's about understanding how their behavior changes throughout the year.
So we're really putting all the pieces together, understanding the fish's mindset, the right gear, the location, and the perfect timing. But angling pros also emphasize something else that's really resonating with me. They talked about the importance of patience,
Oh, for sure.
especially when you're after a trophy. Crappie.
Yes, and they hit the nail on the head there. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of fishing,
Yeah.
but landing a 3-pound crappie requires a different kind of mindset.
Yeah.
Remember, these aren't impulsive bluegills.
Right.
You're dealing with the chess grandmasters of the lake. A 3-pounder has survived because it's cautious.
It's like they're testing our patience, making sure we're worthy adversaries. I remember this one time.
Mm.
I was convinced I was in the perfect spot. Beautiful submerged brush pile. The sun was setting. I had the perfect jig presentation. But for hours,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
I was starting to get discouraged. But then I reminded myself,
Hmm.
patience, it'll happen.
Yep.
And you know what? It did. Not a 3-pounder, but a respectable crappie that made the wait worthwhile.
And that's exactly the point angling pros were making.
Yeah.
It's not about instant gratification.
Right.
It's about embracing the challenge, the anticipation, the learning experience that comes with each cast. It's about respecting the fish and the time it takes to outsmart them.
I love that perspective. It's not just about the catch, it's about the journey. So let's say our listeners are hooked. They're
Yep.
ready to chase their own 3-pound crappie dreams, armed with all this knowledge. What's the one piece of advice that could really make a difference in their success?
I think angling pros would agree that the most important thing is to do your research.
Okay.
Before you even hit the water, take the time to learn about the specific crappie populations and regulations in the area you plan to fish.
So we're tailoring our approach to the specific lake or river like a detective gathering intel before a big case.
Exactly. What works in one body of water might not work in another.
Right.
For example, some lakes might have a higher density of crappie, while others might have fewer, but larger fish.
So we're talking about checking local fishing reports.
Yes, sir.
Maybe even talking to experienced anglers in the area, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And don't forget about your state's Fish and Wildlife Agency.
Yeah.
They often have a wealth of information on crappie populations and can offer insights into effective fishing techniques.
And knowing the regulations is crucial too, right? We want to make sure we're fishing responsibly and ethically.
You got it. Regulations can vary widely from one location to another. Some areas might have size limits,
Okay.
catch limits,
Yeah.
or even specific seasons for crappie fishing.
Yeah.
It's our responsibility as anglers to be aware of and respect those regulations.
It's all about being good stewards of the environment,
Exactly.
ensuring that future generations can enjoy the thrill of crappie fishing.
Yeah.
So we've covered so much ground lures, gear, location, timing, patience, and now the importance of research and ethical fishing. Before we wrap up, is there one last nugget of wisdom angling pros would want our listeners to take with them as they embark on their 3-pound crappie quests?
I think they'd say, don't be afraid to experiment.
Oh, okay.
While the techniques we've discussed are tried and true,
Right.
every fishing trip is a chance to learn, adapt, and refine your approach.
So it's about taking this foundation of knowledge and then making it our own.
Yeah.
Adjusting to the conditions we encounter on the water. It's like having a master class on crappie fishing and then being encouraged to add our own personal flair.
Precisely. Pay attention to what works, what
Yeah.
doesn't, and don't be afraid to change things up. Maybe you'll discover a new lure color that the crappie can't resist,
Oh, yeah.
or find a hidden hotspot that nobody else knows about.
That's the beauty of fishing. It's a constant journey of discovery, a chance to connect with nature and challenge ourselves.
It really is.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's not just about the fish you catch, it's about the memories you make along the way.
I think our listeners are now equipped with the knowledge and the inspiration to tackle their own 3-pound crappie adventures. But before we send them off to conquer the lake,
Yes.
is there anything else they should keep in mind?
One final thought.
Okay.
Remember that patience, persistence, and a willingness to adapt are key.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows, maybe one of our listeners will be the one telling us about their trophy crappie adventure next time.
I can't wait to hear all about it. All right, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of trophy crappie fishing. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.